It's not going to get out of my head for a while. That's going to bother the hell out of me. All right, what do we have next? We have a 12-inch MacBook that is dead. Let's try and figure out what killed this 12-inch MacBook. The 12-inch MacBook from 2015 is definitely one of Apple's crappier computers. Although, then again, most of them are the crappy computer. But this one's even crappier than most. And today we're going to go over why it is that this machine is crappier than most. And as always, hopefully you learned something. So, let's see. What is going to make this one crappier than most? Well, great question. What makes this crappier than most is there's a circuit on it that fails even if you don't get it liquid damaged. And we're going to see if that's the case on this board. So first thing we're going to do is notice how when you open this machine, I want you to really notice the type of Apple design and engineering that takes place inside of these fucking marvels of nature here. So the first thing I want you to notice about this machine is once you unscrew its proprietary screws and go to lift the case off, you'll notice that this cable is not long enough for you to actually get the machine to the desk. So what most people do simply by opening this machine, the mere act of opening it is in and of itself a trap. So when you go to open this, you need to, while it's half open, to unplug the keyboard and trackpad cable while you can still barely even see in there because it's half open, and then lay it down on the desk. So that's number one. That's number one inside of this pile of think different. After you've done that, but wait, there's more. We're going to open up a schematic and a board view for this lovely 8200045 board and start taking some basic measurements. Now, this over here is going to be the charge port. And I'll just get that brought up on the board view using Paul Daniels' amazing software that you can find at pldaniels.com. Now, over here, there's going to be voltage from the charger that shows up on PPV bus E85. PPV bus E85 is going to be present on F4700. That's the DC input fuse. The DC input fuse is going to have 20 volts on it if everything's working right. But this one might not have 20 volts on it, and we'll see why shortly. I'm going to turn on my multimeter software here, set it up on volts, slide over my cam so that you can see what I'm measuring. And let's see what we get on this DC input fuse over here. What do you all think I'm going to get on the DC input fuse? 0, 5, 20, 1. And as you can see, on this steaming pile of MacBook, I get 0 volts. How many thank you emails did you get for fixing the pixel under the banner? I got none. I got none. And it's getting 0 volts because I didn't plug the charger. When I was trying to fix that board, that wouldn't work unless it was on a knockoff MagSafe that was under the desk. So I didn't plug the charger in. Wow, I'm a dumbass. All right, plug the charger in. Now that we plug the charger in, there's something that I can edit out of the video that goes in the main channel so that nobody knows how stupid I am. We're going to check the voltage of the DC in fuse. And it says OL. So it is 20 volts. All right, let's move on from there. So it says 20 volts, which means that this thing should be turning on. Unfortunately, it's not turning on. Uh-oh. Think different. This is going to be a tougher one. So I'm going to disconnect the battery. Plug it in. Let's see if it's giving us CPU vCore. So let's find CPU vCore. CPU vCore is going to be on one of those capacitors in the side of the board. PPVCC SO CPU, like here. All right, what are we getting on CPU vCore? We're getting 1.75 volts, which means I should be expecting to see something on the screen, but we see nothing on the screen. So let's go over to the LCD connector. LCD connector is going to be J8300. On J8300, let's see what we find. And also, what should we be looking for? So 3.3 volts for the LCD is going to be delivered on pins. That's going to be on pin 23. Now, unlike the other LCD connectors where you could kind of measure stuff, this one is different, because think different. So it's a bit more difficult to measure stuff like this. And I'll show you what the connector area looks like if you want an idea. So it should be on pin 23. And pin 23 is going to be right here. And we get 0 volts on the screen. So we got 0.8 volts for a second, and then we got 0 again. So I'm going to unplug the charger. Let's just make sure that the thing turned itself off. CPU vCore. Do keep in mind this machine has no indicator LEDs of any kind, so there's no way to tell when it's on or off. If the screen is not working, that's great. So I'm going to unplug the screen. Let's take a look. Is there water down here? Anything burned looking? What are those two? I don't know if you can see what I'm talking about. C8316 and C8310. That's on the panel enable line. PP3V3 SOSW LCD and this PP5V SOSW LCD. So this is an interesting LCD panel. It wants 3 volts and 5 volts. Well, let's see what the resistance is to ground on those funky looking capacitors. 10 kiloohms, no problem there. And yeah, that's obviously not going to be shorted to ground because it's an SO rail. And it does turn on. I wonder if it'll just magically start working again if I unplug the screen and plug it back in. That would actually make my day really convenient. Alright, we've unplugged the screen and plugged it back in again. And now we check the voltage at CPU vCore. It's 1.7. It's a little high. Seems like it's a little. Now I'm also kind of curious if I get anything on an external monitor. So I'm going to get myself a dongle and go for the external monitor. Let's check the dongle. Okay, we've got a dongle. We're going to plug in a dongle. This is the dongle. So we're going to have the dongle, and I'm also going to plug it into my capture card. Video capture device, my microscope, make source visible. So whatever's going to show up on the external monitor is also going to show up here. Okay? That's how this is going to work. So dongle. HDMI. I'm going to unplug the internal screen just so it doesn't get confused and think that there's another screen plugged in, although I don't think it sees the screen plugged in since it's not outputting to it. And plug it in. Plug it in, plug it in. Does your store send to Canada? Sure, why not? Enjoying the streams you do, Lewis. Thank you to Noel Dickinson. I appreciate that. I'm glad that you enjoy. Let's just make sure that vCore is turning on, and it is. So it seems like the CPU vCore is turning on, but it's not even recognizing an external monitor. Dongle that costs more than a dedicated GPU. You could buy a crappy GPU for the cost of the dongle. How is it going? Can you show us the micro pencil on the top-down camera? Hard to see how small it is under the microscope. This is my micro pencil. So, it seems like this is not giving us any picture on an external, as well as an internal. So this is not a problem with no image. This is a problem with no brain. For some reason, even though this machine is getting CPU vCore and turning on, even though the CPU is turning on, we don't have a brain. So let's take a look over the inside of the machine and try to get an idea why that is. That's going to require that I remove the board from the machine, and we are going to go from there. This is going to be one of those issues to diagnose. It's going to be pretty difficult since it doesn't seem like there's any history of liquid damage on this board. And it's going to be even more difficult because it's one of these pieces of crap where the RAM and the CPU and the drive are all soldered onto the motherboard. Since the RAM, the CPU, and the drive are all soldered onto the motherboard, it's not like you can really tell which of the above is bad. And so this is most likely going to go from my thought it was a simple fix, so I'm going to turn on the camera, to the crap, you made an idiot of yourself, delete this pile. But we'll see. It's not a guarantee that it's going in that pile just yet. There may be a chance. There may be a chance for this just yet. I hope. Damn, that board is tiny for $1,000. How can those things cost so much? I really fail to see all the fanboyism. Not 1,000. This one is $12.99. Get your facts straight. Get your facts straight. It's not it's not $1,000. It's $12.99. It makes total sense at $12.99, man. It may not make sense at 1,000, but it makes total sense at $12.99. This thing's a piece of shit. I said 1,000 plus. It makes total sense to buy this at 1,000 plus. It may not make sense to buy it at 1,000, but at 1,000 plus, you have to understand. When it costs more money, it seems like it's a better product. And if it seems like it's a better product, then goddamn, I'm sure it must be. You don't understand, man. You don't get it. You have to get it. You're not thinking differently enough, Mr. Viking. If you were thinking differently, if you thought differently. Then this would all just make a bunch of magical sense to you. Okay, we're going to take a quick visual inspection of the board, and then see if anything on this makes sense. All right, are we ready? No, we're not, because it's not plugged in. Let's try this again. Really should get the HDMI adapter for this. I keep forgetting. This board looks pretty. Pretty. Totally pretty. Nothing wrong here. Looks nice up here. Looks beautiful up there. Looks great here. And a little bit of something over there, but nothing too great. Thanks for your videos. I'm now interested in electronics, hoping to do stuff like this one day. Maybe after I finish university. 5 years, yay. Never know, 5 years from now, this is probably just going to be a coating of epoxy. Huh. Why is there liquid over here? I sense liquid. That's liquid. But it's not liquid that's really turned into anything. Big fan of your work. Have a nice day. Thank you to Prosk. So, well, that's some interesting soldering. Does this look like stock to you? That looks like something I would do. That little solder blob sticking out the side, what's up with that? What board number is this? I like bringing up the schematic. This is an 820-00045. Greetings from South Africa. Greetings, Nathan. So, this board seems to be perfectly clean. It's a board with soldered on memory, soldered on SSD, soldered on CPU, and when it turns on and boots, it doesn't boot. Oh, about that. Yeah, that is some total horseshit. I am thinking that we leave this one for Paul. The solder blob is thinking different. Yeah, let's go back to the solder blob area so we can maybe get a history. So you're right under the battery connector. What are you for? That is for creating battery charging voltage. Yawn. That's got to be working. What happened to the board that only like rip-off chargers? Oh, that's also waiting for Paul. Paul got Memorial Day off for being a Marine, which is his right as a Marine. Coming back to a pile of has VCorp and but doesn't boot is also his right. I like Paul. He's a very good sport. What happened if the DRAM chips die? How do you diagnose and come up with the conclusion of RAM being dead? Ha ha! You don't. In the older machines, you could have beeping. Beeping is something. I'm not sure if these beep when the RAM is bad. I should mess up a RAM chip on one that's mine just to see and find out. But yeah, in the retinas and the airs, you would have beeping. Beeping would give you an idea that it's, and if not the RAM, at the very least, CPU link between RAM and the CPU. I mean, the CPU could be messed up and not be able to communicate with the RAM. That's always a possibility, or a crack in the board. But at least you know, issue is related to memory. But this one, there are some things that we can check. I can check RAM voltage. Let's check that out. But yeah, I mean, in terms of me replacing the RAM to figure out if it's the RAM, haha, no. That's not happening. So yeah, the SSD. Camera. There's memory for the camera on this. There's the CPU. Here we go, 2 RAM chips. So PP1V2S3, that's got to be present because we're in an SO. I mean, it makes it to SO, so. Is there another SO voltage for the RAM? Any SO voltage for the RAM? Okay, PP1V8S3, PP1V2S3. So let's find these two. PP1V8S3, PP1V8 underscore S3, and then PP1V2S3. We do iPhones for data recovery. Someone said, I think Paul is doing all the work at Rossmann Group. You figured out my plan. Not all the work. I mean, he's not doing the backlight fuses or the easy ones or the... I enjoy discussions about business. I coach 30 to 40 new businesses a quarter to use common sense, and hey, it went away. How do I make it come back? To use common sense and due diligence as well. There's always room to improve oneself. Here's a burrito. Thank you. Yeah, I probably have a lot of improvement myself to make. And I've started making a lot of it last year, but it's not nearly as much as I'd like. I still got a long way to go before I know what the hell I'm doing. Alright, let's see. Where was the charge? You know what? This can also go in Paul. Next. Left in car, won't boot, needs data. Peter Orangen's onto something here. Alright, so it charges a battery. Let's see if it turns on. Left in a car that went into the lake. Oh, my customers are not Ted Kennedy. Can't use the lifeboat thing that you bought. No, this is the older one. The drive is not soldered to the board. So I don't have to worry about that here. Passage boat works. So let's see if we can make this thing work. Hopefully not fuck it up. Have you tried to turn it on and off again? Greetings, it's 12 p.m. here, but I'm still watching your repair. It's addicting for some strange reason. Where are you? Hawaii or something? 12 p.m. Someone says they think microwave will fix the issue. Microwave will not fix the issue. So I feel fan spinning. But is anything on screen? Ah, flashing question mark folder. That's no good. This is the Iris only 2013-14 model. These are known for randomly crashing because CPU vCore will drop for reasons that Duke and I have yet to really figure out. So the machine itself is likely alright. Let's see if it will see a solid state drive. So I'm going to boot up into another operating system. And I just want to see if this machine has the ability to see that SSD. And then I'm going to just isolate whether the issue is the SSD. I'm going to boot up somebody else's SSD in this computer just to see if it has the ability to. So first things first. Let's see if this computer has the ability to see an SSD. And let's see if this is going to wind up being a sad story. Okay, so we're going to unplug the SSD that came in this computer. And we're going to plug in a compatible different SSD. And again, the purpose of this is just to see if the issue lies with the board or the drive or the operating system. So I just want to confirm that this board doesn't have some sort of SSD reset chip issue or some nonsense like that. So we've got ourselves a nice compatible SSD. And plug that in. Make sure it's nicely situated so it doesn't jiggle around. Turn you on. Boot mofo. Boot mofo. I'm holding down the option key. Holding down option on these machines will give you a list of devices that it can boot from. Come on. Oh, interesting. When I hold down the option key, it doesn't bring me to anything. Just hold down the other option key. Okay, let's see without the option key. Alright, doesn't see this SSD. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try his solid state drive in my computer. And if that doesn't work, then he's truly fucked. And no data for him. But let's see, one way to find out. Erase it? Oh, don't erase it. Okay. This is so this here is a tester MacBook. So we're going to take this tester MacBook and take this customer's SSD and see if it boots up in the tester MacBook. All right. So do you think this guy's lucky and has his data, or do you think he's unlucky and he's fucked? What are your bets? What are your bets? What does everybody in chat think? Data for him or no data for him? See, reset PRAM. I see unlucky, lucky. I bet he has data. Lucky. Hey! And he's got, it looks like it's booting. So the issue seems to be isolated to his computer. His computer cannot see a working SSD. So he does have his data. I'm just going to cover this so you can't see the dude's name because I don't need all of you like fucking finding his home address and phone number and shit online and bothering him. That's for the 1% of you that are crazy. To the 99% of you that are not crazy, I'm not afraid of that. But I know there's 1% of you that are out of your mind. It's just the way it is. So the issue seems to be with the motherboard. So we're going to take the board out and try and figure out why that is. But lucky him, his data is all there. Okay, now I wiped it for Steve.
Did you actually?
No. Oh.
That has my stuff on it.
Okay. So this is an 820-3662. We don't work on these boards very often because they're trash. As I've said, it has a from Germany. Have you been to Europe? I haven't been to Europe, and yeah, I haven't been to Europe. But thank you very much. So the problem with these boards is that the vCore will randomly shuffle up and down, and Duke and I have yet to be able to figure out why it is that occurs. And when that happens, this causes a lot of crashing and kernel panics. Now, as many of you know, I've talked about and I've criticized the fact that with Apple, all their machines that have a GPU have a tendency to fail. So what they did here is they created a computer that does not have a GPU that still fails. How the fuck do you manage to do that? I don't get it. Anyway, this dude doesn't seem like he's having this issue yet. He's just sending it in for this totally unrelated issue. So I'm going to open up a schematic and a board view for an 820-3662, and you guys can open that if you want to follow along with the repair. And just going to get that opened and take all the screws out of this thing and pray that we can figure out what's going on. Now, let's just go over to the SSD connector as I'm opening this up. You guys can follow along in your own board view software. Now, the SSD connector is J3700. And if we bring up J3700, you're going to see that there's a couple of things that are important. The first thing that's important is that the SSD is actually receiving power to turn on. And this is something that we're going to have to test with an SSD connected. PP3v3 SOSW SSD. That is going to power the SSD so that it can work. And PP3v3 SOSW SSD, let's just find out where that's going to be coming from. I actually don't know how to search through this software. Paul, where's my Control F? Paul! Damn it, Paul Daniels. Okay, let's find L3700. L37, actually wait, I don't have to do that anymore. I can just right click it. Okay, pin 1 of L3700. Comes from R5549. Here we go. So a sense resistor. Where do you come from? R5549. Okay, that's going to come from Q8070. Let's check Q8070. And so Q8070 is going to be responsible for taking PP3v3S5 and sending PP3v3S5 over to the SSD, and it's going to do that if SSD power FET enable is present, and that's going to be present from SSD power enable and PM sleep S3 buffle. So that's quite a handful. Now the next thing that we're going to be interested in is going to be if the SSD reset signal is present. So let me show you where that would be. It's going to be SSD reset con L right over here. SSD reset con L on pin 8. And that's going to come from U3740. Daniel! Okay. So U3740 is going to be responsible for creating the SSD reset signal. Now, the way reset signals work, a reset signal is kind of like the reset button on the front of your desktop PC. If you hit and hold down the reset, if you hit the reset button, the computer will just turn off and on again. But if you hold down the reset button, the computer never turns on because it's stuck in reset mode. So you want the reset button to be on just long enough for the SSD to pop on and off. So when you reset the computer, you're going to be resetting the SSD. But if you turn the computer on and the reset signal is stuck, then it's never going to work. And that could be part of what's causing our problem. So let's see if it's something like that. Also, don't delay. Buy Flex Board View for $79 today. I bet sitting in a hot car, something broke a connection, so Lewis will reflow something. No, that's not going to be it. The hot car has nothing to do with this. It's going to be humidity or liquid, or either humidity, liquid, or something blown up. But the hot car is not going to be what did this. If this died from, like, Apple machines are constantly boiling, so hot car is not going to be what did this. I sincerely doubt it. I could always be wrong, but I sincerely doubt it. So. Don't delay. Buy Flex Board View today. Don't delay. Buy Flex Board View today. Don't delay. I agree with Engineer 6 saying hot cart can't be enough. If that was enough to kill an Apple product, that would just be a laugh. If you were, now don't get me wrong, if you were encoding video in the hot car, then that would kill something. But that wouldn't kill the SSD reset circuit. Although then again, I don't know if the SSD reset circuit is what's dead. It could be the SSD power circuit, the SSD reset circuit, or if this dude's really fucked, then it's actually PCI Express is totally dead inside the CPU. But that very, very rarely happens. Now, the way that you can tell that is when you're booting up and you're holding down the option key. When you're starting it up, what happens is there's a little drop-down menu from which you can select Wi-Fi networks to boot off of to do recovery. And if it doesn't see that, because Wi-Fi on this machine runs over PCI Express, not USB, that will give you an idea of whether PCI Express works. If PCI Express doesn't work because the lanes to your CPU are destroyed, then you're just screwed. You're stuck working off of USB forever. You'll need a USB Wi-Fi dongle, and you could say goodbye to Thunderbolt. But that would suck. Also, for some reason, this machine doesn't want to let me boot up when I hold down options, so I'm not checking to see if PCI Express is dead. I hope PCI Express is not dead. It's usually only dead for customers who are dicks. And it's one of those cases of usually that's a bad thing that only happens to bad people. Okay, so we got the board out of the machine. So I would give a visual inspection over the areas that I that are questionable before anything else, as usual, because you never know what hints may come about. So we're going to put the machine aside. We're going to have the motherboard on the desk, and we're going to look up some things in here. Now, the first thing that I'm going to look up is U3740, because U3740 is the chip responsible for the SSD reset signal. So I want to know if that looks particularly disgusting. If it does look disgusting, then we'll go from there. So that's going to be right over here. Let's bring it up on the screen. Now we got a couple of pubes, but nothing that's going to kill it. You know, there's a little bit of pube here, but that's not enough pubes to kill a MacBook. The amount of pubes that are required to kill a MacBook, you can see in my last live stream. That live stream I went over the exact number of pubes required to kill a MacBook. But that's not going on here. This is not even close to the required amount of pubes. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look over the power circuit, because this area looks kind of fine. So let's go over and find where power is going to be coming to the SSD. So we're going to right-click L3700, and it's going to show me right where it is, thanks to Paul Daniels' amazing software, available at pldaniels.com. So we're going to go down here, and this is the inductor that's going to send voltage to my SSD. We're just going to check and make sure that there's not a ridiculously high resistance there. Zero ohms of resistance there. And we can check on the transistor that's going to send voltage to my SSD. So where was that? You go here. U3710? Yeah, U3710 was it, right? Oh no, that's just some other BS. OOB isolation. That's not it. Okay, let's see, R5549, pin 2, da-da-da. Where is my transistor for turning the SSD on? Okay, oh, Q8070. Alright, so let's find this. And that's going to be this thing up here. And this looks absolutely fine. So right off the bat, I can tell you that this board's going to suck, because there's no sign physically of anything being really messed up, which kind of leads me to wonder if it is the issue of PCI Express not working at all. So in order to actually do real testing, I have to plug the SSD in. So we're going to plug the SSD in, and I'm going to see if the SSD reset signal is present, and I'm also going to see if the 3.3 volts turn it on are present. So I'm going to plug the SSD in, like so. Get it in there nice and snug. Turn the board around. Place it comfortably on the desk where I can make my measurements and get started. So the first thing we're going to test on the SSD connector area . Oh, that's not the SSD connector area. The first thing we're going to test is whether or not 3 volts is getting to the SSD. And the SSD should be plugged in for this to occur. So the computer's smart enough to not send 3 volts to an SSD that's not plugged in. I would hope so, at least. It's smart enough to not send 5 volts to a screen that's not plugged in. It better be smart enough for this. Is that stream on his Patreon? I don't have a Patreon at the moment. Just the YouTube and the Twitch. Okay. And a forum. So. Fans are spinning. Machine is on. SSD voltage. We have 3.3 volts at the SSD, so the machine is able to power an SSD. All right, the next thing we're going to do is take a look at whether U3740 is producing a reset signal. Now remember, this reset signal, we want this to be high. It says SSD reset connection _L, which means the reset signal, which is going to reset it, will be present when it's low. So on pin 8 of the SSD, or on pin 4 of the SSD reset IC, which is U3740, which I can find just by right-clicking it thanks to Paul Daniels' software, available at pldaniels.com. We want that to be high. So that's going to be like 3.3 volts. This chip is powered by 3.42 volts, so I'm expecting 3.3, 3.42 volt logic. So we're going to find that over here. And see what we get. Now SSD reset is actually 0 volts. Interesting. Very interesting. So the SSD right now is in reset mode, and that's why we're not getting an SSD. So how do you get an SSD reset signal out of this? Well, let's take a look. In order for that to work, we're going to need PP3V3 SOSW to be coming in through this pull-up resistor. We need SSD reset L to be high on pin 3. So let's check that out. SSD reset L, pin 3. Now we know that the computer wants to turn the SSD on. It wants to turn the SSD on because we're getting 3.3 volts in the SSD. And that wouldn't be happening if it didn't want to turn the SSD on. So if we were to go back over to the Q8070 area, and we take a look at this, on Q8070, SSD power enable needs to be present in order for this whole system to open. This is a P-channel MOSFET. It's going to open when the power on the voltage on the gate is lower than the voltage in the source, which will happen when this N-channel MOSFET has a higher voltage in the gate than the source, which is ground. So once this opens, it's going to take the voltage in the gate of this MOSFET and send it to ground. The SSD power enable gets this whole thing started. Long story short, SSD power enable is there. I think the computer wants to see the SSD. It wouldn't be trying to turn something on if it did not want it to be on, which leads me to believe that the issue could be isolated to U3740. So revisiting U3740, I want to know if SSD reset L is present, and I think it may actually be present. So one way to find that out, we're going to measure for SSD reset L, which is going to be present on pin 3 of this chip, and I bet it is. My bet's on it being present, because if it's not present, this guy's probably fucked, since it's going to wind up being some sort of PCI Express issue. All right, it's funky. It's it's 0 volts, but then it goes up, and then it goes down, and then it goes up, and then it goes down, and then it goes up. You know what I think? I think U3740 is bad. I think as a result of U3740 being bad, it's pulling down my SSD reset signal. I think that's what's going on here. I think that, because think about it, 1 volt is not a valid state for SSD reset. This uses 3.3 volt logic. 0 volts is a valid state, 3.3 volts is a valid state. 0.1 volts, 0.5 volts, 1 volts, that's not a valid state. So let's remove U3740 and see if it has any effect on our SSD reset L signal. I'm going to turn off the power supply. We're going to add a little bit of flux over here, just a teeny bit. Going to take some of that beautiful Amtech NC559 V2TF flux, available at store.rossmangroup.com. We're going to put it on there because it makes removing the chip easier, more luxurious. I'm going to turn on my fume extractor and get to work. Obviously, I'm going to unplug the SSD before I do any soldering, because hell if I want to heat up the NAND chips. That's no good. You never know if that SSD could be on its last legs as a result of being plugged into this effed up board. Huh. I didn't notice that the person who owns this machine is actually watching right now. Oh man. I feel bad now. I've said I hope the guy who owns this isn't fucked like 5 times. Yeah, I'm probably giving this guy a heart attack about his data. Maybe I shouldn't be live streaming this stuff. Sorry, guy. If you're watching. Oh, man. Oh well. We're probably going to make it work though, so there's no problem here, right? It's only a problem if you can't fix it. And I'm sure this is going to be fixable, unlike that A1534 from before. YouTube experience for free, says Aaron. Yeah. Jessa had this idea where she charges you an extra $100 for the ability to watch your own repair. I don't know. It seemed a little on the... Seemed a little too on the... Needs to buy another house from YouTube money thing. Jessa literally bought a lake house from YouTube money. Jessa's got it like that. Lewis put his money into AGRX. Jessa put her money into a nice house. Jessa's smarter than Lewis. Lewis is dumb. Okay, so putting... Now I'm going to have to put a chip on there anyway, whether this works or not, so I might as well just tin the pads, you know? I'm going to tin the pads, remove the lead-free solder there, put some nice leaded solder there, make this look nice, make this look professional. We got to make this board repair look good since the dude is actually watching. We can't do any of those fucked up ones where, you know, like the pads are getting ripped off and I'm throwing shit out and going, oh, we don't need this thing. This is just for Thunderbolt. Yeah, we totally value Thunderbolt. We never do that. We never do that. That's... This is only for USB 3. Who uses that over USB 2? Boink! No shop talk. No shop talk on this stream. Okay. This one actually has to work because the person who owns it is watching it. Okay. I've definitely taken Thunderbolt off on too many streams. I remove it like an appendix. Alright. Uh-oh. Someone says give it to Paul. So she asks for a permit before she starts streaming a repair. No, what Jessa does is she charges you $100 to watch the stream of your repair. And she calls it the YouTube experience. I asked her, you know, what happens if you can't fix it? Or what happens if it's just removing the JTAG connector? Not only did they pay for the board repair, but they also paid $100 to essentially watch you remove a connector. And she said, no, I'll walk them through it if it's that. I'm like, that's such a bad idea. That's such a bad idea. You're going to knock off C5202RF and then go, yep, that's $500. And they're going to look at you like, what the fuck? That's not going to end well. But apparently it's ended well every time she's done it, so what the hell do I know? What the F do I know? I know that would be my luck. Like every time that if I were to charge people to watch their board repairs, every time it would be that, it would be, yep, this thing already works. Yeah, you just got to punch it. All right. Enough done there, right? It's nice and cooled off. We're going to plug in a solid state drive, and I want to see if SSD reset is present on this pin. Let's see if it is. Let's see if it still jumps up and down. If it does, then we're in some serious shit. $1 volt. All right, so that is pretty fucked up. That is not a valid state by any means. Yeah, 1 volt is not a valid state. SSD reset should not be 1 volt. That is very, 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 very bad. Now, it is at least staying up. That's a good thing. But the fact that it is there is very, very bad. So let's see where SSD reset let's see where SSD reset comes from. Hopefully not the CPU. All right, so we're going to chase SSD reset L. Tell me that you don't come directly from the CPU. Platform reset buffer L. Let's check out what that is. Okay. So there's a 0 ohm resistor between platform reset buffer L and SSD reset L. All right, let's go. Let's follow down this rabbit hole here. What's up, U2080? What's good? All right. So, are you giving me what you're supposed to be giving me? Now, this is a logic gate, and if PP3V3SO is present on the input, and platform reset L is present on the input, which has to be present for it to turn on, then platform reset buffer L should be present. So this is a logic gate. If you have 3.3 volts on both of the inputs on the left, then you're going to get the output on the right. So the logic gate could be bad, or this resistor over here, this 0 ohm resistor could be bad for SSD reset. Platform reset L is definitely present. You need platform reset L to be present for it to turn on. If you didn't, your platform would be reset. And, you know, if your platform's reset, then you're effed. So first things first, let's check out R2085. And thanks to the magic of Paul Daniels' new board view software, finding that is just a right click away. Don't delay. Check out Paul Daniels' software at pldaniels.com today. Who needs a magician when you have Paul Daniels? All right, so we're going to go to this resistor. And let's measure you. What do you got? What do you have, resistor? Are you a 0 ohm resistor? You are a 0 ohm resistor. All right, let's continue down the line then. That's not the problem. Let's check U2080. U2080, this is the most confusing no SSD power I've ever had, to be honest with you. This is probably not getting solved on the stream. I have not had an SSD, no SSD thing that's this confusing ever. Like, it's every time we have a no SSD, it's either your SSD is bad, or your software, your operating system was corrupt, or the little inductor that sends 3 volts to your SSD it blew up. But this is going to be confusing. But let's continue following it down the stream. All right, so on pins 1 and 2 are the inputs to our logic gate. And the logic gate is going to be here. U2080. That's this thing. So pins 1 and 2 are going to be over here. What's the point of a 0 ohm resistor? A fuse or a link? So we need PP3V3SO, which is present because the machine's turning on, obviously. The machine wouldn't turn on if it was missing that rail, so that's there. And then it needs platform reset L at pin 2, which is there, obviously. Now, pin 5 is going to be the power where the chip's going to turn on, and that's there, obviously, because it's PP3V3SO. But this pin over here is 1 volt, which leads me to believe that the logic gate is what's not working. It's getting its inputs, it's getting the power it needs to turn on, but it's not turning on. So it's getting everything that it needs on input, and it's getting the voltage that it needs so that that logic gate can be a logic gate and do what it does best. Yet, it's not working. So what I'm going to do here is we are going to repeal and replace U2080 with a better one. A fitter, happier logic gate. And continue from there. What about R2080 not shorted? R2080 is a resistor. Resistors do not fail that way. Capacitors fail that way. And remember, it's not the SSD reset IC in front of it that's at fault. because we've already removed that. So we've taken away the possibility that that was what was causing our fault. We removed that as a link. And that is the most common link. So this is a very, very rare failure. This is not something that happens often. Just going to wick away that nasty old lead-free junk before we put some nice, sexy leaded solder down there. And let's put a nice logic gate on this board. Alright, we all ready for a new logic gate? Huh. Apparently I think maybe Paul had this problem before. This donor is missing a logic gate. This one's got a logic gate and a reset, I see. Beautiful. Easy peasy. Why use leaded solder over lead-free? It's easier to work with and doesn't mess up over time as much. What causes something as simple as an AND gate to just fail all of a sudden? The fact that it's inside of an Apple product. That's all you need to know. It's inside of an Apple product. So it thinks to itself, is this what I want to do with my life? Do I want to spend my life inside of an Apple product? And it answers the question for itself. And there you go. Think about it. If you were an AND gate inside of an Apple product, what would be your motivation to continue working every day? Not much, right? Yeah, that's how it is. Aaron says better than spending life in a landfill. Yeah, but in a landfill, it's going to go to a recycling center. When it goes to a recycling center, that little AND gate is going to get ground down into something and then maybe used later on to make something nice like a cup holder or a chair or a breast implant. All right. We're going to let that cool down for a little bit. And once it cools down, we're going to try an SSD on it and see if it works. I've got some confidence that we fixed our issue. This is a clear open and shut case. Bada bing, bada boom, fixed board. I bet this is going to work. I hope it works. Because if it doesn't work, I don't collect any money. And I'd like to collect some money. I could use some money. Once I collect some money, I can get myself a burrito. I like getting myself burritos. I'm going to get myself one of the bigger ones today. I like the bigger burrito. It's amazing. It's a good burrito. I could definitely use the extra size burrito today. Today was a lot of work. Lots of stuff to do. So a jumbo burrito would be a joy. Isn't the other chip still off? Nope. Sure isn't. And this is going to turn on. So we're going to plug in our SSD. And just watch my SSD reset come up. Just watch that SSD reset come into play. It's going to be amazing. Ready, folks? You ready? Yeah. So SSD reset is going to be down here. And I'm going to probe that with my meter. What do you think I'm going to get? I think I'm going to get 3.3 volts. And I get 0 volts. Well, fuck me. An SSD reset is still 1. What the fuck? Well, that's okay. That's some bullshit. That is some bullshit. Fuck. No burrito for me. Okay. Fucking horseshit. Let's continue. I'm not throwing it in the trash, THP. We have work to do. We're not going to get outsmarted by a fucking logic gate. Okay. Pin 4. Maybe it's supposed to be 1 volt. What if this is supposed to be 1 volt? I find that difficult to believe, though. Maybe there is some other issue on the output of the gate that's pulling it down. Let's see. What's the resistance to ground here? Resistance to ground is 64 kiloohms. Can C2080 be pulling the line down? No, because C2080 is sitting between the input and ground. So that would be pulling PP3V3SO down as well. That's not it. You know what could be pulling this down? Camera reset, AP reset, and Thunderbolt reset. But then again, if they were pulling it down, why is it that we have 60 something kiloohms to ground over here? Doesn't really make sense. Take out the other 0 ohm resistors today. Let's see, camera? Fuck the camera. Who needs a camera when you don't have an SSD? What's AP reset? AP reset is probably going to be for the Wi-Fi. I mean, well, I guess fuck Wi-Fi. You don't have an SSD. That's useless. And Thunderbolt. Yeah, fuck Thunderbolt. What's the point of Thunderbolt if you don't have an SSD? So good point. Let's take out the other. Yeah, let's knock off all this crap. Yeah, this shit's all... Alright, remember what I said before about let's not knock off somebody's Thunderbolt or USB on a stream? Fuck it. We're gonna... What are we gonna do? We're out of options here. Alright, so... Let... Okay, so what were the other ones? Thunderbolt. Okay, you gotta stay. Yeah, you're gonna go. Fuck you, Thunderbolt. Fuck you, camera. And fuck you, Wi-Fi. Okay, so... Yeah, you never know. Something else may be pulling this down. Yoink. No Wi-Fi for you. No Thunderbolt for you. And no webcam for you. Who needs any of that stuff? That's all optional anyway. What, you need a camera to take pictures of yourself and that crap so you could post it to the internet, and a Thunderbolt so that you can see it on an external monitor? What kind of narcissist are you? Shit's all optional. Okay. Alright. R2080 is not doing it. Don't noob me. 3.3. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We now have a proper 3.3 volts and SSD reset. So now we're going to put those back one by one and figure out which circuit it is that's fucking this up. So what do you think it is? Do you think it's the Wi-Fi circuit, the webcam circuit, or the Thunderbolt circuit? This is one of those areas where it would be really convenient if it was the webcam that was screwed up and this is a dude that had tape over the webcam. Because there's nothing more satisfying than the type of synergy that you get when a customer sends you a board that has an issue with the webcam circuit and they have tape over the webcam. Because you can essentially be guaranteed that it's like, hey, check it out. Just because you're like one of our top tier customers, I actually modified your board so that you no longer need this tape over here. And they go, wow, thank you so much. What do I owe you? Oh, nothing. Just a smile is all. Okay, this is an interesting rabbit hole. I gotta say, this is an interesting rabbit hole of a board. I was not expecting this. I definitely was not expecting to go this far down into the depths of hell over no SSD. This is cool. This is a very interesting new problem. Only on an Apple product. Only on a fucking Apple product would this ever happen. I mean, look at this. This board does not even have liquid damage on it so far. Unless I'm missing it. Okay. So we're going to put this one on first. So which one was that? That was for Wi-Fi, AP reset. Yeah, so AP reset L goes to this chip, U3540, and U3540 is responsible for resetting the Wi-Fi. And that thing is up here. And it's got some garbage by it. Okay. Anyway, where were we? So let's plug in the SSD. And we're going to measure and see if our reset signal is still present. Because I want to figure out which one of these is messing it up. Oh, voltage, duh. 3.3. So it's not the Wi-Fi. Okay. Next on the list. It's got to be either the webcam or the Thunderbolt. Webcam or the Thunderbolt. I'm hoping it's webcam because webcam is one of those circuits where you can kind of sort of maybe sell people on not having it. Huh? Magnet. I have a few. Okay, so next up, reattaching Thunderbolt. Yeah, everybody deserves Thunderbolt. Oh yeah, that one. Screw that one. Thunderbolt. All right, that's back on the board. What an investigative, invigorating stream. Could it only be a problem when all are connected? Well, if that's the case, then we'll have to do rock, paper, scissors, says no Wi-Fi. Rock, paper, scissors, says no Thunderbolt. Rock, paper, scissors, says No SSD. No Wi-Fi. No Thunderbolt, no webcam. Let's hope it doesn't come to that point. Rock, paper, scissors says. That's how we fix boards here at Rossman Repair. That's how we roll. Okay. Gonna get this thing plugged in. Check our reset signal now. We've got Thunderbolt reset and webcam reset and SSD reset. I mean Wi-Fi reset, Thunderbolt reset, and webcam reset. It's the fucking Thunderbolt. It's Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt's doing it. Okay. We got to follow where that goes. Let's follow where that goes. So Thunderbolt reset, TBT PCIe reset. Where are you going? You're going to some stuff on the other side of the board, it seems. You're going to this big, ridiculous Thunderbolt chipset that is almost impossible to reball properly. Yeah, fuck that. It's going to... Okay. So let's just put it on webcam and see if it at least boots before we determine whether or not we're doing that. Paul's not going to be happy if I leave him that. Paul's going to be mad. That would be a very mean way to wish him a welcome back. I wonder if any of my donor boards even have one of those that works. Reball stream. Okay. Someone says they win, it's Thunderbolt. Very good job. Okay. So, let's give you a view of where that goes to. So, Thunderbolt reset. It looks like it goes to a probe point inside the board. It goes to U2800. And it goes to, yeah, and so that's pretty much it. So the only option is that it's this chip over here. So all of those balls that you saw are on a chip that is, yeah, it's this, all these balls over here. That's this. Do I have a stencil that even fits this? I definitely don't have a stencil for that. I wonder if I can use maybe I can rig an SMC stencil to fit that. But I would definitely have to order, I would most likely have to order a stencil to reball that, which would come from China and take forever. Huh? Or we can see if Paul can do it freehand. Paul is going to have to place, if we can't find a stencil, then Paul's going to have to take the solder balls one by one. One ball, 2 ball, 3 ball, 4 ball, 5 ball, 6 ball. That's not going to be fun. Is reset back to 3.3? Yeah, it seems so. So I reattached the webcam one just because it's obviously the Thunderbolt circuit. So now we're going to see if this is able to boot with this drive. And if it is, then we're going to explore whether or not I can find a stencil for this, whether or not Thunderbolt can work. Thank you, Linspire. That's very kind of you. So we'll explore whether or not I can find a stencil for that, and also whether or not I can sweet talk Paul into replacing that chip. Thunderbolt and Jan Robert Nagard wins. What? Reball that chip? Paul's not going to be. He's going to quit if I make him do that. Oh, me? I'm going to quit if I have to do that. How about you have to do that on stream? Yeah. How about it?
Really?
Yeah, go for it.
I mean,
one of us has to do it, and it's not going to be...
put Steve on it.
Steve's not going to do that either.
Steve could do it.
Let's mail it to Jessa. She said she's bored lately and she wants some challenges. She actually tried to reball an SMC ball by ball at the course when she couldn't find her stencil. She gave up after 2 hours and went to lunch and like, what? But I gotta admire the dedication.
Didn't Paul do that on the CPU at some point?
Paul, I think he did it on a PMIC. And we got an Apple logo. And it's going to boot up into the operating system just fine. I'm just going to cover this so you can't see the person's name. So you got the idea. So this is able to boot now. So just to go over this again so you have an idea of what it is that we did to fix this board. It wasn't giving us any, it wasn't allowing us to see an SSD. So we tried that SSD in another computer, and it boots up fine in another computer. But working SSDs did not boot up in this computer. So what we did is we went to where the SSD connector was on the motherboard, and that is at over here at J3700. And at J3700, the main things I'm interested in are power and reset. Drink some Jägermeister and reball it. Yeah, I'm going to need a lot of Jägermeister to reball that shit. You're going to need more than that to get me to reball that shit. Yeah, no, it's time for a burrito. I got up at 6 in the morning today. It's 7:05 p.m. It's time for me to get food and a burrito and not reballing that. Anyway, so 3.3 volts was present at the SSD. 3.3 volts being present at the SSD tells me that it's trying to turn the SSD on, and it also tells me that we don't have a power problem. So then we looked for the reset signal. The reset signal is very similar to the reset button in the front of your desktop computer. If the reset signal is present all the time, and it's going to be present when it's low because you see _L. If you hold the reset button down, your computer's not going to turn on properly. The same way if the reset signal is held down, the SSD is not going to start. So we looked, and I saw that SSD reset was sitting somewhere between 1 volt and 0 volts, which is not a proper state. It should be 3.3 volts or 0. I took off this chip because SSD reset L wasn't present, because I was curious as to maybe whether this chip was holding it down. That's the most common issue with this board, and that's where most people are going to wind up stopping, because 99% of the time it's going to be U3740. However, we still didn't have any SSD. And we still didn't have SSD reset L. So we followed SSD reset L back to find out where it comes from, and it comes from around the R7085 area. R7085 is what attaches platform reset buffer L to SSD reset L. But this platform reset buffer is also going to go to several components. It's going to go to the SSD reset circuitry, the camera reset circuitry, the access point, which is the wireless card reset circuitry, and the Thunderbolt reset circuitry. We tried replacing U2080 because we were getting our inputs but not getting our outputs, and I also noticed there was no short to ground over here. However, this was not any ordinary short to ground. The short to ground that we were having on platform reset buffer L was a short that was only present when the machine was on. So there is a chip that is broken that is pulling the voltage down only when that chip is on. That's a rare and a very annoying type of short. And that is the type of short that's not easy to detect. So when I measured for my resistance to ground over here, my resistance to ground at platform reset buffer L was over 70 kiloohms, which is a totally fine value that leads me to believe that the issue is with U2080, not with something in front of it. We had the inputs to PP3V3SO, we had the inputs over here, we had platform reset L, we had PP3V3SO, and we had the voltage for the IC to turn on. So U2080, the logic gate, is being told to turn on. It has its input voltage, it has its input signals, but it's not creating its output. So I replace U2080, and it still doesn't work. What the hell? The only thing that makes sense at this point is that something in front of it is shorting it to ground, but only when the computer turns on. So we removed these one by one and put them back on to figure out which one it was, and that's when we figured out that when the Thunderbolt resistor was attached, it was stuck. Be sure to get a burrito. It was great to get to watch. If Thunderbolt isn't fixed, what all does it affect? It would mean, I imagine, no Thunderbolt or external monitor. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Or it would mean that you only get external monitor through the HDMI port. So when we removed this piece by piece, we realized that it was the Thunderbolt that was holding it down. So we removed that, and we noticed that when we plugged it in, our SSD reset signal was back, and it was also booting into the OS, which means that there's something wrong with the Thunderbolt reset. Now, if we look at where that goes to this Thunderbolt controller chip over here, which is something that this is a job for Paul to replace. So this is a very, very complicated chip, as you can see here. It has a bunch of different functions and a bunch of balls in a very small area. And this is one of those chips that comes with programming. This is not a chip that you can just buy by itself. This does come with programming. So you need to harvest it from a donor board and pray that the board that you're harvesting it from is not a board that was thrown away because that chip doesn't work. And you also have to hope that it will survive that process. Some chips do survive the process of being harvested and put back on. Some chips are sissies and do not survive that process. SMCs are pretty sturdy. The LVDS Mux is kind of sturdy. I'm not really sure on that one since I don't think I've ever replaced it before. But the next stream and the next video that you probably see is probably going to be Paul cursing up and down because I'm going to ask him to replace that chip together. And we'll get to that later. So that's it for today. Thank you as always. And I hope you learned something. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. And also, thank you very much to DT Mace for the $10. I will get a burrito, and you should be hearing from Steve shortly. See you in the next one.